I'm Daniel Freisinger, and this is episode 14 of Pikes Peak Weekly, found on the net at pnn.tv. A couple weeks ago, I did a show on the City Planning Commission and their recommendations for zoning for medical marijuana businesses. At that time, they didn't give the public an opportunity to express their feelings on the changed recommendations. Well, Tuesday, the City Council met to discuss these recommendations and to finally give the public a chance to weigh in. During the public discussion, several issues were brought up that made a lot of sense. This discussion made more sense with the public talking to the City Council than was made in the whole Planning Commission meeting. Mark Slaw from the Medical Cannabis Council mentioned the fact that crime statistics hadn't gone up since the medical marijuana dispensaries had been operating.
Truth is that many of these operations are already operating without any issue. We've had city police already say that there's not been any increase in crime. 41 incidents in 18 months was the last report that the Gazette published. So there's not really any jurisdiction or any validation here that we're seeing from City Planning Commission indicating why increasing the zones if it's already worked for 2 months.
Next, a gentleman from the No on 1A that was worked to defeat the medical marijuana ban in the county brought up the issue that this was about logic and not just emotion, and that a lot of the Planning Commission's ideas just didn't make sense.
The medical marijuana community is being forced, once again, to defend itself from an attack. This time we see it being from the Planning Commission. And we see this as really being an attack that we see as an attempt to make it as difficult as possible for medical marijuana businesses to actually be in business right now. The battle today, as I see it, is really one between logic and emotion. And I'm going to advocate to please use logic in making these decisions. And what I mean by that is ask yourself, really, what problem is meant to be solved by increasing, for instance, the distances from 400 feet to 1,000 feet? And what evidence do we have that those increases will solve any sort of a problem? If there's no evidence indicating that some tangible problem will be solved, then there's really no reason to change those rules.
As the discussion was getting started, Mayor Rivera made the point that even though they were having public discussion, that the point of this discussion was not to discuss whether or not medical marijuana was going to be allowed, but he was actually looking for public input on the distance requirements.
So it would be helpful if you tell us, I don't support 1,000 feet, make it 400. I want to be able to have a grow operation in the M1 or M2 zoning code. Those things specifically that you think we need to address or make changes in the ordinance. That would be very helpful.
Tanya Garduno from the Medical Cannabis Council, and I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong, Tanya, so please excuse me, brought up the issue that the whole point of these regulations or these change in zoning was intended to cut down on the number of dispensaries in town.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Garduno. I'm the president of the Colorado Springs Medical Cannabis Council. I've been coming up here for now, according to that presentation, well over a year now, and you've been listening to various arguments on various items regarding this issue. I fully support the 400 feet buffer. I think that it's been very effective for us since May when it was put into place. I don't think that we have had any children being coaxed off the streets. I don't think that we've had any issues regarding those types of things, so I think it's very reasonable. The purpose, I think, behind a lot of the regulations that came down from the commissioners were to put some of these businesses out of business, and what I'm here to tell you is you don't have to really do that.
Tanya goes on to talk about how the business environment itself is taking care of limiting dispensaries. Next, we have a dispensary owner that if the 1,000-foot buffer comes into place for any kind of alcohol rehab, not just the 24-hour alcohol rehab, how he's going to lose his business.
I've been in full compliance since we started all this, since you guys handed us the rules. I then borrowed money at a high interest rate to get a business up and running, only to find out that there is a rehab center that's 850 feet from my retail location. I don't support that. I do support the definition of rehab centers as 24-hour facilities. The damage that we saw from the map that the zoning department pulled up doesn't show all of the rehab centers. It only shows the ones that are 24-hour centers. I've got 6 employees working for me. All but one of them have families. They have moved. They have done everything they can to work for me. And I just ask that you guys consider all the people and the families and the children of the families will suffer.
I wish we had time in this show to go through each of the people that spoke and listen to what they've dealt with, dealing with these shifting regulations, and what they have to lose. A lot of people have invested heart and soul in this. They have a passion for the patients, and they were truly concerned that this was going to put them out of business. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that everybody was for the going back to just the 400-foot regulation and actually stepping back what the Planning Commission did. Out of about 20 people that spoke, there were 2 opponents of the 400-foot who were actually trying to push the 1,000-foot separation, both between churches and between dispensaries and colleges. UCCS had a representative there who was pushing for 1,000 feet, and the best explanation he gave of why they wanted this is he claims that marijuana citations are up on campus since medical marijuana came to be, which was utterly ridiculous. Everybody knows that there is marijuana use on college campuses, and there may just be more enforcement of those rules. I mean, it's not like it was a study that they did that proved that medical marijuana was doing this. The other issue was they were worried, and this is what it really came down to. They were worried that when parents brought students to the college to visit, that they might see a dispensary and it might hurt Colorado Springs' reputation of being such a holy city. The Catholic Diocese, their biggest concern was they have kids programs. Well, you have people running those programs, and it's their responsibility to teach your moral values. It's not a matter of the city trying to impose their moral values so that your young people are not exposed to these things. If you're doing your job as a church, they're going to know right from wrong. Counselor Darrell Glynn asked a very important question that really illustrated the arrogance of the Planning Commission, thinking they could write these rules as they chose.
I have a question first. Do we have a representative from the Planning Commission here?
Doesn't look like it, no.
Okay.
So there you have it. I could actually end this show right now, and it would have made the statement that needed to be made, and that is the Planning Commission thought they could just totally overrun the city council and let their will be done. Vice Mayor Small summarized the feelings of most of the council when he says that they're going to stick with the pre-application criteria as the standard.
The comments were made relative to the pre-application criteria, and I absolutely agree with those, that we stick with the pre-application criteria.
Darrell Glynn does a good job of summarizing how this issue went through the Planning Commission and the reaction of the City Council as a whole to how they handled this issue.
Back in September, the Planning Commission did conduct a hearing. But after that hearing, the Commission also gave recommendations to staff to go out and make some major modifications that we are talking about today. And then they reconvened in November, and they did not, in my opinion, allow for public comment. I have an issue with that. I think it's important enough.
Even Scott Hente, a staunch opponent of medical marijuana, reluctantly supported sticking with the pre-application criteria.
I'm not a fan of this, and you know that. But it's more important that the city keep its word, and the city keeps its word by saying, you follow these rules, you put in a pre-application, we'll take your money, and then, oh, by the way, 6 months later, we'll cut the knees out from under you, and I don't think that's fair. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to support this. I'm not jumping up and down and telling you, and you're not going to applaud me. But I mean, you're going to, no. You'll like my vote, but my heart's not there. I just want to point to that. So.
Jan Martin points out that now that this biggest hurdle is going to soon be over, it's going to be up to the medical marijuana industry to make sure it operates in a legal and ethical manner.
It is my hope that you all are very successful. But in the process, the one thing I want to say is let's never forget what this is all about. And it really is about those patients, those people who need your services, and it's the reason the people in the state of Colorado actually voted to make this, to make medical marijuana legal. So in the process, let's not forget it, but tonight you're about to get a very business-friendly environment to work in.
I was unable to get footage of Tom Gallagher and Sean Page and their remarks, but needless to say, with all the hard work that they have done with the Medical Marijuana Task Force, that they both supported this. And Sean Page made a point that I really wanted to bring out, and that was, even if you disagree with this, it's not the place of the city council to try to impose their morals at the expense of liberty and freedom for those in the city. By the time Mayor Rivera was ready to call the vote on this, it was pretty obvious which way the city council was leaning.
And there was a constitutional amendment passed in 2000, and we as local government officials are doing our best to implement that based on the amendment, then the state statute that was passed earlier this year. So we're doing our job, and like Councilwoman Martin said, it's going to be up to you to make sure you have a credible, legitimate business, that you stay within the bounds of the law, that you make sure our police department isn't knocking on your doors, because we want to make this as successful for everyone and as easy as possible. So please vote. That motion passes unanimously.
After the meeting, I took just a moment to speak with Mark Slaw of the Medical Cannabis Council to get his reaction to the City Council's vote.
Just general reactions on this amazing win today. One we didn't lose, which is awesome. Turns out everybody on City Council voted on our favor, which was also very surprising. And in this particular situation, nobody was against us. So for once, we're very excited about this. I'm sure the 60-plus business owners are probably very excited they don't have to close their doors. Their employees, on average 5 to 10 employees apiece. That's hundreds of jobs that were saved today over a very long and grueling process and quite a bit of testimony. So hearing everybody up there, giving their speeches and doing their thing, we were able to pull through the victory on this one. So Colorado Springs and common sense prevailed this time, which is great.
As I wrap up, I just wanted to say congratulations to all of those in the industry, and I want to remind those who are opposed to this industry that sometimes liberty and freedom means supporting that which you disagree with. Until next time, this has been Daniel Freisinger with Pikes Peak Weekly.